About 80% of patients can be managed out of the hospital setting. To bring a patient to the hospital, obviously this is not just
breaking news.
They will err on
Bringing the president to Walter Reed Medical Center
because of who this patient is.
out of
But in
precautions.
general, when someone's symptoms progress rapidly and they feel that they need other services, more observation in the hospitalized setting, they will err on the side of caution.
I was listening to Alex Jones earlier.
It's especially surprising, as you point out, the president is not any patient.
He's saying,
the President of the United States, he has an entire battery.
you know, there's a possibility that they try to kill him, you know.
So they're taking this.
I hate to think of that.
At this point, in part also.
Once again, we have to keep praying for our president.
Man and weighs 245 pounds.
Exactly. When you look at the risk factors, as we know with the published reports on data of COVID-19 patients who are admitted, age, being a man, having a BMI of 30, which is the cutoff for obesity and above.
I mean, this could be
and then again,
part of
talk about
the
who
coup.
this patient is and the potential benefits of having other services at his disposal in a hospital.
How easy would it be right now
Just in case, in
to slip him something?
Prepare for the worst, hope for the best, and take all the steps we need to so that
To slip him something
the medical team
that would take him out.
to respond quickly.
Jen Ashton, thanks very much. Let me bring in Terry Moran, our senior national correspondent, as well. Terry, hearing the president may be going to the hospital for a few days brings up immediate discussion of the 25th Amendment and whether if at some point he may have to say, I'm going to turn over some of my powers now to the vice president.
They keep talking about the 25th Amendment.
Why the 25th Amendment was written, to make sure that there are guardrails for situations like this.
They've been talking about this for a long time. That's why it makes it suspect.
He is not up to discharging, in the words of the Constitution, the powers and duties of the office.
They've been talking for years about the 25th Amendment,
declaring that, and Mike
taking
Pence
Trump out.
becomes the acting president. That's a temporary measure. He doesn't take the title or the office, but when President Trump recovers, feels better, he writes a letter saying that, and he becomes president again. The hard part is if he falls ill quickly and isn't able to get that letter off, what happens then? Well, then Vice President Pence, under the Constitution, would assemble the cabinet, and if a majority of them vote that the president at this moment is not able to discharge the duties and powers of his office, Mike Pence would become acting vice president. So the Constitution has
This could be the biggest coup ever done.
Continue in a safe and secure manner.
It's only been invoked for relatively routine operations for President Reagan and President George W. Bush. In fact, when President Reagan was shot in 1981, they did not invoke the 25th Amendment.
They did not, and his physician later said it was a mistake because he was under anesthesia for a very serious gunshot wound. And that is one of the triggers that has happened in these previous instances.
Which was probably George H.W. Bush, the vice president, trying to gain power.
And what chiefs of staff has said is the question they ask is the president capable of making a decision?
History repeating itself.
As soon as he emerges out of
They're trying another coup.
and seemed capable of making a decision, that letter reclaiming his powers went out. This is a different situation, unprecedented.
Yeah, right now we have no reason to believe the president can't make decisions at this point. I want to bring in Martha Raddatz, our Chief Global Affairs Anchor. Martha, the president is headed to Walter Reed, a facility you know well.
The fact that they're bringing him there,
It's a massive medical facility. He will get the best care possible.
that's not a good
Not only
sign.
for military doctors. Of course, he has a military doctor, but they will have any doctors at their disposal to help out with this in the president's care. You heard the White House say he will have a presidential office
This
there.
could be the
I think what they
perfect
need
place
is
for the
a
military
VIP
coup.
room, which
They've been-
is set up
they've been
at Walter Reed, but that's set up
Spewing
so
all
he
kinds
can
of
be there.
hatred
He can work out of there.
and fake news about the military, that he said things about the military.
A very, very professional hospital, of course. We have seen through the years dozens and dozens and hundreds of soldiers and others treated there for wounds. The president will be treated for COVID. I know they have a lot of protocols in place already at that hospital for others who may come in with COVID, but they will certainly make way.
All
for
there
the
needs to
president.
be is a few Brutuses.
Former governor of New Jersey as well. And Chris, of course, you were helping the president with debate prep through last weekend up until Tuesday, I guess right around noon, Tuesday afternoon. So you were in pretty close contact with the president.
I was, George. We worked Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday.
I say trust no one at this point. I'm siding with Alex Jones right now.
Of the White House.
This is not a good development.
We also worked in the Oval Office a little bit. We were all pretty well spread
Anything
out.
could happen right now.
I was probably, 3 to 4 feet away from the president. I was sitting across from him, across a rather large table. But we were all together for a number of hours for 4 days.
Did you notice anything, any symptoms at all?
No.
They could try to take out Donald. They could try to take out Pence.
Back and forth preparing for the debate. He seemed energetic and, ready to go. And I didn't notice anything with him or with Hope Hicks.
Pelosi is the third in
During
line.
those times. They both didn't display any symptoms that I noticed.
This is looking more and more like a coup.
Walk us through the process of how and if the White House contacted you.
The more it progresses.
Program, so you would then go get tests yourself.
I have not been contacted, George, by the White House. I found out about Hope's diagnosis through media reports. Then obviously when I heard that Hope, who I had been in that same room with as well, had tested positive and was symptomatic, I knew that I was going to have to be tested. And so I found that out, I guess, about 9 o'clock last night when it was initially reported. And I went this morning to a center here in New Jersey and got a test, and I'm supposed to receive the results first thing tomorrow morning.
People need to pray for the president. Pray for the president right now.
To Walter Reed, I want to bring in Cecilia Vega for more on this as well. Of course, you've been covering the White House. This has been your beat now, all through this COVID crisis. And, it was just surprising to hear Chris say that he was in contact.
He's sick and he's got all these conspirators around him.
Because the president went forward with that trip to Bedminster, New Jersey for a fundraiser, an event yesterday in New Jersey after the White House had learned that Hope Hicks had tested positive.
George, I just had a physical reaction to hearing Chris Christie say that he hadn't been contacted and learned from the media that Hope Hicks had been infected and tested positive. I mean, that just raises serious, absolutely serious questions about the contact tracing method that the White House has been using. And you mentioned it, that big trip to Bedminster that we know the president took, even though he knew that he had been exposed, potentially exposing 100 some odd supporters there who've now been told by the governor of New Jersey to take the appropriate precautions in the wake of that presidential visit. But this is coming at a time when the polls show the majority of Americans don't trust the president's handling of the coronavirus. They don't trust what he's said on this. He has, frankly, misspoken, mistruth after mistruth on how
You're trying to make this political.
Remember, he told Bob Woodward, he admitted that he intentionally downplayed the severity
Everywhere you
of the
go,
virus to Americans because he said that he didn't
all the
want
social
to
networks,
at the time when he made that statement,
they're all politicizing
this
this.
was. There are just serious questions right now about how I think forthcoming the White House
Kicking them all down.
will be about the president's condition, about the lead up to it.
Adding insult to injury.
Waiting to find out exactly, when he was first tested. The White House not saying that. There are also, George, we've been talking about this over the last 4 years, questions about the president's health. We don't have a full record, a complete record of how healthy or not healthy he has been leading up to this. Just like he didn't release his tax returns. He's not been fully forthcoming about his own health conditions. There was that big mystery trip last year to Walter Reed that we still don't really know exactly why he went. And I just got to say, George, as a White House correspondent, I've just been pretty astounded in the last, 12, 15 hours since all of this broke, watching the fallout take place over the course of the day at the White House and still seeing, even as the president has tested positive for coronavirus, aide after aide addressing the media via...
It reminds me what they did to Tim Russert.
Wearing masks today. It's been a pretty astounding day so far.
Right after he said something to Hillary Clinton in the debate that she didn't like.
Jen Ashton for more on this. So we know
Right at the moment she knew that she could not beat Obama, he winds up dead of a quote-unquote heart attack. And they also said he was overweight.
Mike Lee of Utah have also tested positive for the virus. Several members of the cabinet have come out and said they've tested negative. But for someone who's been in contact with the president in the last 24 and 48 hours, an immediate negative test doesn't necessarily mean you're in the clear, correct?
Absolutely correct, George. So I actually asked Dr. Anthony Fauci about this question after exposure to a confirmed case of COVID-19. When is the optimal time to get your test? And he said day 3, day 4, day 5. We know the average incubation period for this virus is 5.2 days. And we also know, based on data, that people who are pre-symptomatic can shed the virus and be contagious up to 48 hours before they themselves develop symptoms. So that would be the time to get your test, day 3, day 4, day 5.
Coincidentally, Hillary Clinton did not give any well wishes
and can absolutely
to Donald Trump and Melania.
Negative results. So contact tracing is key. We've heard from the beginning, critical to control.
They could be all in on this.
Trace and isolate, and it seems like there are some big issues in the contact tracing department of that equation.
President Trump, was across the room from former Vice President Joe Biden on Tuesday night at that debate. We learned this morning from the former Vice President that he has tested twice now negative today for the coronavirus. He's gone to Michigan.
This could be a well-executed plan against our government, against our president, against domestic enemies.
He did offer his well wishes to the president and the First Lady. You mentioned he did receive 2 negative tests today, one from a doctor in Delaware and another, he said, by the former White House doctor who came up. That may be part of the reason why it took several hours this morning for us to get an answer about the status of his own condition. But, you know, it was notable that during his speech just now, the former vice president kept his mask on for the entire time. And he implored Americans to wear them too, saying, you know, this is not about being a tough guy. Those were the words he used. He again argued that masks are a matter of being a good patriot, looking out for your fellow Americans. And he did call for all Americans to have the same access to testing. You know, saying that it's not just people in the White House or
And of course, this Stephanopoulos character is Bill and Hillary Clinton's pet. That's how he got his start, working for the Clintons.
On that debate stage with the president for 90 minutes, even though they were socially distanced over 13 feet apart, but they were not wearing masks. We have asked the Biden campaign about this, and they say that they felt comfortable resuming their campaign travel because, one, Biden tested negative, but also they say he was not directly in close contact with the president, and they say he was wearing a mask at all times during the debate, except for when he was on that.
Right, and there was no encounter backstage between the president and former Vice President Biden?
They have not said that explicitly, but they say that he was not in direct contact with the president, so that is the implication they seem to be giving us, George.
Okay, Mary Bruce, thanks very much. Let me ring Rahm Emanuel right now. Rahm, you're a strong supporter of Vice President Biden. Is he handling this correctly in the wake of this kind of bombshell announcement from the president?
Yes, I mean, 2 things, George. One is he's handling it correctly by
Rahm Emanuel, Obama's buddy.
A speedy recovery, and then also be reassuring to the public as a whole, not just as a candidate, an opponent of the president, but as an American. And I think, to be honest,
If you're a praying man or praying woman, you better start praying right now.
disagree with me, I'm going to be your president. And his whole message is about unity, bringing the country together.
Because this could be a coup.
I hate saying this, given you're dealing with a health crisis or a health
Our
challenge.
president could be dead within days.
Exactly right for his message. I can only imagine now.
And they wouldn't tell us.
There on the South Lawn.
They would never tell us the real details of how it happened.
The White House political team, that you have a president, the image of making a decision, we're going to have to take it to the hospital.
And that's what I wanted to ask you about, because you're a former White House chief of staff.
They could slip him a poison while he's at Walter Reed.
Not as complicated a set of issues you can deal with, and the most personal set of issues you can deal with for a president.
Well, you know,
Now they're saying he's got fever chills.
It revolves what I call the East Wing, meaning the First Lady.
They could have slipped him the poison
And you have the doctors
in the White House.
obviously made a decision that the White
This
House
is terrible news right now.
given now you have fever, you have some conditions.
Breaking news.
As preventive, but this has an implication that the White House is just not set up for this. So we have to be at a hospital. Then you have the political team saying, you understand whenever we start in the morning, you know, on our own 2-yard line, and this is going to put us on our 1-yard line, if not worse. And they're weighing in, probably saying, this is horrible, and then you have the family going considerations, and in this case, both the president/patient considerations.
They need to be surrounded by people they trust.
Where you have national security saying one thing, political team saying another, and in the end of the day, you can't really find a weight of equity, that you have to pick one side of that scale or the other. And
The
you can
deep
see
state's
that helicopter
working overtime.
won this argument.
From a purely nonpartisan perspective,
Keep the prayers going.
You just put on that institutional hat. What should we be hearing from the White House right now?
I think two things. One is, if I were them right now, I'd get the medical team and doctors, as soon as the helicopter is up, I'd get them out with a press conference in the White House press briefing room to answer all questions. It will be
These are the snakes.
that I think the country needs, and
The Clinton, Obama snakes, deep state
all three of those
snakes.